today we have a limited amount of time, and the topic that I'm really wanting to discuss today is a lot bigger than the time we have, okay? The way it's going to work, I just want to manage expectations. I'm going to talk for, where's my phone? I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite us to have a little discussion amongst those around you, and I have some guiding discussion questions and so forth based on what I talked about for another 20 minutes or so, and then we'll reconvene and we'll have an open time for some questions and answers for another 20 minutes. So hopefully button it up by about 8. Sound about good? Okay, that being said, the topic that we're talking about today is, it's called Craving Connection, Addiction, and the Authentic Self. I could talk about addiction, honestly, for miles and months, okay? So we're really just touching what these mean and what it might mean for us individually. You may be here and you're saying, I'm not addicted to anything, so why am I here? To see this really good-looking, tall, dark, handsome Jeff? No, you're here the other Jeff. But what I will say is that this topic is so very fundamental, because the reality is, and I'll touch on this a little bit more in just a second, addiction is not just narrowed to the things that we see maybe on a headline or a news feed, okay? It's much more complex, and it affects all of us, myself included. But I will say this, the title Craving Connection, it may be a little bit of a misnomer if you thought that coming here was about how to meet friends and how to be more social. It is, but what I will say is that it is only because Thomas Merton has this great quote. He says, we do not have peace with others because we do not have peace with ourselves. And we do not have peace with ourselves because we do not have peace with God. Okay? And so you see this order of events, if you will. And so if we really do want to have healthy, meaningful relationships in that order, Thomas Merton's order, then it does have to go before others. It has to begin with ourselves. Okay, and where you are in your broad spectrum of your belief in God or your own faith journey, for us, it would say, in before us, there's a God. Okay, but again, we all have our journeys that we're working through in discovering that. So that being said, we really want to touch on what is addiction and how does it give us a peek into what relationship it means for us individually and authentically as who we are. So what is addiction? Okay. Again, I can spend hours and hours. I'm really going to be mindful of the time. It's a bit complex, but the easiest way that we can describe it is by remembering 4 C's. Okay? Craving, loss of control of amount or frequency of something or use. 3rd C, compulsion to use. And then the 4th C, use despite consequence. You have pens and what do you call those things? Index cards around you, maybe. Some of you, some there you may not. I invite you to write them only because right after the 20-minute talk, again, I have these discussion questions and things, and I have some blank spaces that are little quizzes for you guys, and that's going to be one of the answers to one of the questions. So just write those down. Again, the 4 C's, we have craving, loss of control, compulsion to use, and then use despite consequences. Are you with me? Okay. Okay, thank you. So that being said, addiction has not just those things to do with drugs or alcohol or gambling or sex or love. It could be things that seem a lot more innocuous to so many of us that you may see out in the world as well. There are other addictions to behaviors, to people, to relationships. People can be addicted to work. We got workaholism, right? Exercise. This is a big one. The phone, right? The phone. Social media, as many of you are typing in your phones, okay? A big one, especially in our younger folk, that I see a lot of clients is gaming addiction, okay? So these are things that are not just reserved for what the traditional sex, drugs, and alcohol. It is much more nuanced and much more involved than that. But what I will say is this. If that's what addiction is, again, craving, loss of control, compulsion, and use despite consequences, then how is addiction used? Here, I'll use drugs, for example, okay? The drug that the person is using to numb themselves, hear me, is not the problem. Okay? Hear me out. It's the solution. What? What kind of talk is this? Okay. Yes, it's not the alcohol, the drugs, the sex, the love, the addiction, the gambling. That's not the problem, that's the solution. Mind you, it is a solution that destroys one's life, but it is a solution for them nonetheless. Are you with me? Okay? The real root of addiction is the underlying issue that the addict is attempting to address through the self-numbing behavior of that drug of choice, whatever that may be. And so again, it could be gaming for young people, and even I wouldn't say for young people, even for some old people, gaming. Okay, is again, it is a root behavior that's being numbed because the underlying issue is there. And what is that underlying condition? A deep discomfort with one's own self. It's like being allergic to one's own self. It's being uncomfortable in one's own skin. Terminally unique. Lonely in a crowded room. Faking it, so to say. Always wanting to feel apart, instead feeling apart from. And that is that annoying feeling that the drugs or the alcohol or the gambling or the love or the sex or the gaming or the work or the exercise or the phone, that is what that risk behavior is being used to numb that person from and distract them from, is connecting with one's honest self. I remember listening to this, I was at this intensive recovery addiction place, and I remember listening to this speaker. He was great. He said it was to a room full of folks who were there for love addiction, sex addiction, gambling, drugs, and alcohol, and it was kind of an intake program. And he says, "You are not here to get recovery from your addiction. You are not here to get recovery from alcohol. You're not here to get recovery from drugs. You're not here to get recovery from sex. That's not why you're here." And so everyone was kind of looking around. They're saying, "Why? I feel like why am I here?" And he said, "You are here to not to get recovery from those things. You are here to get recovery to your authentic self." When I heard that, I was like, "Wow, that's fascinating." And what he was basically saying was, what he said was, see, here's the thing. When you were born out of your mother's womb, you did not come out of your mother's womb addicted to these things. Somewhere along the way, along your life, there was this hole in your heart. And throughout your life, it was very hard to go through life. And so you tried to fill that hole and numb it and fill it with something else, whether it's to distract you, whether it was to make you feel better in that moment, whether it was to avoid things, whatever it was, you use those things to fill that hole. I see in this quite a bit, and he says, and it never keeps their promise. And that's why the addictive, again, there's much more to it than this, but that's why the addictive cycle keeps getting more increasingly, what's the word I'm looking for? Heightened. Wasn't the word, but will work. Okay? It keeps getting more and more. It gets deeper and deeper and riskier and riskier and riskier for that numbing feeling. Intense. Not the word, but that'll work. Okay? Okay. Enough words. All of them are right. You all are right. Okay? You all are right. So that being said, that's what would happen quite a bit. I had an opportunity to work in where was it? Cabin John, Maryland, for about a year at a intensive outpatient clinic with 16 to 22-year-olds who were suffering with borderline personality disorder, suicidality, and self-harm features. And time again, one of the things that we really worked on with these young people was how do we help them to be okay with the discomfort of themselves? They were so uncomfortable with themselves, hated themselves, or hated the world, or hated their parents, or hated everything around them, so much so that they would go to these other things to, again, numb, to relieve themselves. And it is a very, very hard thing. And what I'm here to say is this. He said at this recovery place, he says, everyone here is addicted to something. Everyone in the world is addicted to something. He says, you're here because your addictions are socially unacceptable. Okay? That's why you're here. But mind you, we all function in this way. And if you're saying, not me, I'm inviting you to take an honest look. You don't have to tell us, but it is an invitation to deep introspection. Because it is recovery not from these things, but what? To your authentic self. So then what is it? What is the authentic self? What does that really mean? What it is not, I will say, the authentic self, it is not just being real. How many of you have heard that before? I'm just trying to be real. Okay? Or doing what you want, when you want, saying what you want, when you want. People mistake, quote unquote, being real with authenticity. Like, I'm just being true. I'm just being myself. That's not authenticity. Oftentimes it's verbal vomiting. Okay? Oftentimes it's relieving oneself on another person. Oftentimes it's lack of awareness, a lack of discipline, a lack of care or insensitivity. It is not authentic. What is authenticity then? When we talk about recovery from and to one's authentic self, what is that? Authenticity is something else. It is a rigorous honesty. It is an awareness and an introspection of self. It is a compassionate tolerance and acceptance of our own flaws and imperfections. It is a celebrating of our own values. It is an ever-deepening connection with our mind, our body, and our spirit. Authentic self, if we really can say someone has that or really is in touch with that, they will have three of these things, okay? One, they will be able to know themselves. Because knowing yourself entails being aware of your personality, your values, and your needs. If I were to ask any of you, one of you here today, what's your highest value? Would you be able to tell me quickly? If I said, what is your personality? Would you be able to say it confidently? Oh, this is truly who I am. You see, knowing yourself is one key feature of knowing and having an authentic self. It is, again, being acutely aware of your personality, your values, and your needs. You know what you want and what you don't want. One of the things that I tend to work on quite a bit with clients in my practices is confidence. And what we often talk about is, in order to gain confidence, before confidence, you have to have competence. Competence leads to confidence, and confidence leads to self-esteem. So, like anything else, if you're learning German, for example, how to speak German, you can't be confident in German until you what? Are competent in German. If you're competent in German, you'll be very confident speaking in German. And if you're confident speaking in German, then you'll feel really self-esteem. You'll feel really good about you. Like, I feel like I'm German. I feel like I can. Or that can go for musical instruments. A cello. You can be confident in playing the cello like our Craig here, who is very good. But he's very good because he is competent in the cello. He's spent decades in it. So he's very competent, so he's very confident, so he feels really good. He doesn't tout it, but I will say it for him. He should have very good self-esteem around being a cellist. Take that and attribute it to yourself. Oftentimes, if we individually have a hard time with our own confidence, it's because we have low what? Competence. You jumped the gun there, okay? So when we have a low sense of confidence, it's because we probably don't know ourselves very well. So that's an invitation back to the idea of knowing yourself. We really want to develop this sense of authenticity, because if we can develop an authentic self, more so and truly do these things and truly accept, then we really build an atmosphere, if you will, of protection from all of these things that would want and try to numb us in that way. So the first one is what? Knowing yourself. Okay. The second feature of an authentic self is owning yourself. Okay, I got 5 minutes. Hurry up. Okay. Owning yourself. That means that you can trust yourself. That means you can trust what your opinions are of yourself. That means that you can think, and your choices and how you behave, you own all of those things for yourself. So you got to know yourself, you have to own yourself. And then the third piece and feature of an authentic self, if you will, is being yourself. That entails that you have to behave in accordance with your personality and with your values and your needs. Oftentimes when people ask me, how do I feel more at peace and happy? Oftentimes before I say just do fun things, I ask them, what are your values? Because if you can live in accordance and behave in accordance with your values, what will increase? Genuinely a sense of contentment and happiness. When we are living in discordance with our values, then we tend to feel disrupted and really at loggerheads with us and very agitated. But going back to the first feature, how can you live in accordance with them if you don't what? Know them. So that's what I'm talking about when I say, so do you see, and let me just take a brief aside. So when you see someone who's addicted to drugs, alcohol, and gaming, and sex, and love, and gambling, when you see these people, do you see what I mean when I say they're running to these things because there's this part of them, individual, the authentic piece that they don't, for whatever reason, and there can be a myriad number of reasons why they don't want to discover that. There may be pain there. There may be change there. There may be hurt there. There may be lots of things that may cost quite a bit to do. And that could mean a lot. That could be really threatening to change. So again, know yourself, own yourself, and be yourself. And when we're being ourselves, that entails living in accordance with those personalities and values and needs. And in that way, another feature in that being yourself is you're not as easily influenced by the expectations of other people. That's a big one, right? Because here's the thing, when we talk about being yourself and being your authentic self, in my faith tradition, when I think about God, I heard the speaker once say, when you get to heaven, God will not ask you, why were you not more like Peter? Why weren't you more like John? Or why weren't you more like Lisa or Joe or Court or Craig? Why weren't you more like them? God will not say that. God will say, why weren't you more like what? You. Jesus was a good answer. I saw somebody say Jesus. That's a good answer. Extra credit. I wasn't thinking of that. I'll give it to you. That's a good one. You're smart. Okay, good. But yeah, but more so, what the speaker said was, he said, why weren't you more like you? Some of you here may be saying, I don't fall into this addiction category, Matt. I think I'm fine. I feel like I'm so good. Well, good. You've better than us, better than me. But here's the thing, yet you still have trouble with truly understanding or connecting with your authentic self. Maybe that's you. There may not be overt addictions per se, but there may be covert idols in your life. And these idols, and I use those in quotes, can have an equal impact on inhibiting our authentic selves. One of my favorite books is called Counterfeit Gods from Tim Keller. And so if you know and if you've read this, then great, read it again. And if you haven't, Tim Keller talks about this. He says that he basically, the premise of his book is this. He says that we get The problem with us so often is that we take good things like money and relationships and our health and accomplishments and our children and our family and our spouses. We take good things and we make them ultimate things. And then we get crushed. Because they're never meant, nothing, even the best spouses, are never meant or designed to bear the weight of your entire self. So you'll get disappointed when that's what you expect from your job or from your earnings or from your reputation or from your spouse or from your children even. So counterfeit gods, he says this, that in that same way, we look at these things, so we may not feel like we're fully an addict per se, but identifying our own and our culture's idols is worth looking at. Because again, good things become ultimate things, and that's a real blind spot for all of us. And so in just a moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have us just take some time to, for those around you, have some discussion pieces. And in that, at the end, I have some questions around the counterfeit God piece, but here are some of them just to prime the pump. What do you fear most? What, if we lost it, would make life not worth living? That could give us a little peek into, is something bigger than it should be? Is someone bigger than it should be? I was thinking back on the drive here, I was like, oh, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I wrote some stuff down, but who knows? But as I was talking, I was like, well, and then I landed on this particular piece. I was thinking, how many times have I thought that my life is done? When I was a kid, not getting that thing, I was like, oh, life is over. When I didn't make the basketball team on my freshman year, I said, life is over. When I got my first breakup, my third year of college, when I got my first breakup, I said, what? My life is over. I'll never, ever find anyone again. It's over. When I think about even when I was a senior in high school and I remember applying to colleges, Georgetown, I was from Jersey, Georgetown was my dream school. I said, God, please, I woke up early morning prayer. I said, God, I'm waking up early. I'm going to church with my parents. This is ridiculous. Why should I be going 6 o'clock in the morning to pray? But my prayer was what? Get me into Georgetown. I kid you not. I said, God, this is a real prayer. If you get me into Georgetown, I will give you my life. That is a word-for-word prayer.
How'd it work out?
And we know, some of you who've heard the sermon, I did not get in. I even tried to transfer my second year. What happened?
No.
Didn't get in. So for you guys who go to Georgetown, congratulations. Okay? You're better than me. My point being is this. When I didn't get in twice, what did I say? My life was over. And of course, it would get more dire. And some of you who have been at Restoration probably heard our story. When we lost our first son, we said, our life, how can it go on? When I moved out of the ministry, for something that I've spent my whole life kind of building, when I moved out of that place, I said, what's the point of my life anymore? Well, I don't know what to do anymore. What's my life about? I can't see ahead. I thought, how many times am I gonna have to do this till I learn the lesson? And I trust that there's gonna be a lot more heartbreak ahead. That life is gonna continue to get hard. I know it's going to. But in order for us to get there, we have to be I have to be, and I don't speak for us all, but it is an invitation that we all have to get very connected to our authentic selves so that we can know ourselves well enough. We can own our feelings and our thoughts and our values, and we can behave in that way so that we can get through a life that is so hard but so very good. That is deep and is painful and is rich and rewarding. That is for us all. It is an invitation. And so I'll close out with this time with just a quote from Leo Buscaglia, who was an author, speaker, and professor, who once said, "The easiest thing to be in the world is you. The most difficult thing to be is what other people want you to be. Don't let them put you in that position." Okay? Be you. It's easy, actually. You just got to dare to do it.